now is the time, which I call ascension, now is the time that we are becoming more conscious and interactive with our multidimensional nature, our cosmic heritage, our ability to connect through time. Even though we're physically in the present, we are also subtly right now in the past and the future. And so coming into that recognition of the subtle that's all around us, through us, and interacting with us constantly, it's that conscious journey that is our multidimensional gifts expanding.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Wetzel, and I am so happy to have Jamye Price on my show today. I'm actually honored to have her in my presence. Jamye, thank you for being here. Jamye is an author. She's an energy healer. She's a teacher. She handles light language from Orion and the Lyran Council of Time. We are also going to be presenters at the channel panel on November the 14th to the 16th in Princeton, West Virginia. So Jamye, I am so happy to have you share your information here, and I'm going to be thrilled to be in your presence again at the channel panel.
Thank you, Lisa. I'm excited to be here, and I can't wait to see you again in person in November.
Yeah,
and everyone else, I hope.
It's going to be really, really, really interesting, especially with everything that's happening right now and all of this energy that's coming in and the galactic energy that's coming in on top of that. So I encourage everybody to be there because there's no telling what people are going to experience at this time. So I hope everybody joins us. But today we are going to talk about our multidimensional gifts. So before we jump into that, Jamye, would you give us a little bit of a rundown on your history and all of the beautiful gifts that you have?
Yeah. So I always like to tell people I did not start out as a psychic child. And this just kind of shows we all go through different pathways to get to this place of opening that we're at now. And probably in 87, I first started having the first inklings, and then other big waves would come at different times. But eventually I started doing light language and didn't even know what that was at the time that it started. That was back in the early 2000s. And of course, that has grown to the point where now I just love to see how much it's expanding. But that's something that's very natural to us. So I always knew it would go that way. And my guides, I channel Orion, the Lyran Council of Time. They not only taught me how to teach light language in depth for those that want to go through that process, they also developed an energy modality through me that's called crystalline soul healing. And that is a Lyran template technology. And then, I wrote the book, Opening to Light Language. I have an oracle deck, the Cosmic Consciousness Ascension deck with light language on that, and just lots of fun classes and things that just keep that passion, perhaps obsession with ascension going strong. So that's my wheelhouse there.
Good. Well, again, it's what an honor it is to have you here today. So let's talk into multidimensional gifts. Can't say it. Multidimensional gifts. Right. So what is the definition of a multidimensional gift?
So for me, that is our subtle senses, ultimately. It's things that are very natural to us. And of course, for all of our physical senses, we have subtle senses, intuitive senses, or psychic senses, you could call them. But then, of course, there's other things that may not necessarily be so directly correlated with the five senses. Things like channeling light language, channeling in your own language, ways that we connect and flow energy healing, being a multidimensional gift. So it's us recognizing that this human experience of physicality and separation, it's part of our reality here. But we also know that we are 99.9+% invisible or space or subtle. And so now is the time, which I call ascension. Now is the time that we are becoming more conscious and interactive with our multidimensional nature, our cosmic heritage, our ability to connect through time. Even though we're physically in the present, we are also subtly right now in the past and the future. And so coming into that recognition of the subtle that's all around us, through us, and interacting with us constantly, it's that conscious journey that is our multidimensional gifts expanding.
Mm-hmm. So, just because I want to make sure that I understand, I'm always selfish when I do these interviews because this is all about me. I want to know more. Okay, so when we're talking about dimensions, multi dimensions, you're talking about living in the past and living in the future. Is that how you just described the multi dimensions?
That can be part of it because it's subtle. And so, something that's multidimensional, we are in the fourth dimension essentially, because you're looking at it from length, width, space, and time. And so, depth and time. So, when we are recognizing that we're more than just this physical expression, because Ariane actually calls dimensions dimensional expressions, so
Mm-hmm.
that we'll recognize that they are based on our perspective. So, from where you're experiencing, that's where the dimensions are interacting with you. Density is something different, but the multidimensional gifts would be recognizing things beyond just the four dimensions that the physicality moves through.
Okay, so when we're having these experiences, um, are are we shifting? Are we shifting time frames? Are we shifting realities, or are we bringing everything in from all the different reality? How is that working?
Yes, great question.
How does that
I
work?
get it. So, these are things that are always, always interacting with us. They've always been here. We've always had access to them. And yet, we're in a focal point of a stronger density focus of physicality. That's what we've been going through for eons on Earth. And when we become aware of these other things, which is incredibly natural to us, we are shifting into a conscious resonance or interaction with what's always been there. And so we're shifting our vibrational spectrum, what we can perceive physically, we're shifting it into a broader spectrum. And
Yeah.
therefore, that's going to include time and space. And then it's going to create that interaction with things that are within that subtle expanded bandwidth, like our intuition or channeling or energy healing. So we're here with physical focus. We've always been immersed in that multidimensionality, but we're expanding our focus to become more conscious and interactive with that broader bandwidth.
Perfect. I got it. I'm with you there. That makes sense to me. Okay,
I,
so when
I
we're talking, go ahead.
Oh no, I just love refining that. And because this is so important, it's so
Yeah,
easy to say we're multidimensional and then not really understand what that means. And
yeah,
and honestly, I do not feel like I fully understand what that means because more and more is always going to continue to unfold. But the more that we get clarity in how does this really work, then we're not just saying things like time doesn't really exist. Oh, it exists here. That's why we have day and night and everything. But what does that really mean? And so when you get into those details, that's when it becomes applicable. So I
yeah.
love it.
Yeah, and I think that that's why I really wanted to dive into it because we hear this all the time, but we only hear it from kind of a surface way of describe. I'm a multidimensional being. Well, okay, really, what does that mean? Does it mean that I'm jumping into different realms? Does it mean that I'm jumping into a place where only galactic beings hang out? Or, like, that's why I'm what is the definition of even dimensional mean? And so what I feel like, what I understood you say was, it's almost like as we expand our awareness, we start seeing the different layers of what's existing around us. Is that kind of what you mean? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. I always think of it like circles within circles. Here we are in our physicality, but we're still connected. And then we can expand that awareness into the next layer of more connection, less separation, more connection, less separation. And then that creates a resonance with things that are outside of our physical bandwidth of experience.
Yeah, that's how I like to understand it. Perfect. Okay, so when we're talking about our core multidimensional gifts, how would you define that?
So they are the extension of the five senses because the five senses help us navigate this reality, but all of those have subtle senses. We have clairsentience where we can feel, claircognizance where we can think, or clairempathy where we can feel emotions, etc. And then there's other aspects beyond what we would just consider the five senses, like being able to channel, channeling in your own language, channeling in light language, doing energy healing, all kinds of different things that are the intuitive or subtle gifts that are part of what's natural to us.
So, how do we recognize? Okay, so like we said, you were talking about channeling what is our language. So, I'm very in tune with the Akashic Masters. So, to me, I kind of call that's my language. You have a couple of different languages. So, if I'm trying to define what my gift is, if I'm trying to really figure this out, what is your advice, and how do you think the best way is for each one of us to recognize what that gift is?
One, follow your passions, follow the things that you love, and try some different things and feel what resonates with you. Because I channel light language, for example, and that's not for everyone. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody wants to interact with it, but they can still be on a spiritual journey, ascension, and all of that. And so you find the things that you really like and the things that are naturally showing up in your life, and you experiment around, and then you go, I didn't really resonate with the path that I was taking that was like a lot of nutrition and this and that and physical things. I'm going to go in this other direction. And so that helps us to open up. And then you start to discover what's occurring naturally, what's flowing. And yet sometimes that takes that effort of, I want to try this. And it might be the path, or it might just be part of the path or part of the knowledge base that then you're like, oh, Akashic records. That's where I really enjoy exploring. And all of that was just to help support that foundation for that. So we all have multidimensional gifts. We all have these capabilities, and some will just have different propensities in other areas. And that's what gives us the diversity within the lightworker community, within the healer community, and as we're out interacting in the world, looking all normal, and and yet bringing our expanded energy everywhere that we go. So that is such a beautiful thing to discover and kind of relax into, because the path will always be shown. I didn't know what light language was, and I would not have chosen it if my guides had said, well, how about light language? I would have been like, no, thank you. And now I wouldn't change it for the world.
Yeah, that wasn't on my radar either. And all of a sudden, I found several years ago, I it was back, gosh, it was like 2015, 2016, when Candy Crush and all of those crazy phone games were coming out. And I would play these games. And so I'm constantly doing this with my fingers, trying to play these games. And I found myself sitting on the couch and all of a sudden my fingers were wanting to move. And it's like, oh my God, I must feel like I need to be playing the game on my phone. What is happening here? And it's like my fingers were just like they just wanted to move. And I had been exposed to light language, but at that time I didn't really recognize what was happening. And I just kind of put it under the rug and just kind of, it's like, okay, well, that was just weird. And then as time has moved on, especially over the last year, it has just come on by gangbusters. But I also didn't recognize that this was a part of who I am. So I didn't really understand. I had people around me that were doing light language, and it was like, oh, cool, that's your gift. That's cool. That's what you do. That's cool. And then all of a sudden, my hands are start moving around again, and I'm recognizing that I can feel the energy moving around me. And it just, so sometimes we may not even recognize what these gifts are that are being given to us. It just kind of unfolds. But for my advice, I'm going to advise you all to pay attention and don't do like I did. I probably wasted about 9 years thinking, oh, that's nothing.
I didn't know what it was when I first started either, and that was back in the early 2000s. And
Mhm.
yeah, just pay attention and follow your passion, and all kinds of things are going to open up at different times. And
Yeah.
the wild journey.
So, do we have any other gifts besides? Okay, so we've already mentioned channeling. Light language is a form of channeling. So, are there any other gifts that people could be looking at that they may not be aware of? Because we're kind of being specific on this. These are your multidimensional gifts, and if I don't channel, I would like to know that there may be another option for me.
Absolutely. And some of them will be obviously not mainstream, like light language or reading the Akashic records or doing energy healing. But some of our gifts are going to feel a little more mainstream in air quotes. And yet it's something coming through with more of your energy, because that to me is what that multidimensional flow is about. It's that broader bandwidth. It's about, like, for instance, some of it might be art. And so instead of a painter that's like, well, I have an idea and then I'm going to paint that, or I'm going to paint this landscape, that's valuable technical skill. But there may be a time where there's this flow to bring through something differently than they would normally bring through, and it's part of their multidimensional gifts coming online. And so there's, in my opinion, like a myriad number of them that can really be more about the energy that's coming along with it,
Mhm.
rather than just the actual gift itself, because a painter was a painter before and they're a painter after, but then there's more energy flowing with that. So they might be things that are obviously connected to things that aren't typically 3D, aren't typically mainstream, or they might be things that are interwoven with that, but then there's just a lot more energy flow coming along with it.
Yeah, when you're talking, what just jumped into my head was maybe somebody that likes to cook, bake. And
Absolutely.
yeah, because, and I think this is why I kind of wanted to focus on this for a minute, because, the typical public, the people that come to me, I want to be more connected to my guides. I want to learn how to channel. And, it's like people only see it from one way, that this information comes to us and then through us, and we don't recognize that we live intuitively every second of the day. And so when you were talking about art and being creative, people that do art recognize they can get into a flow. And people that write songs, all of a sudden, how many musicians and songwriters have we heard? I wrote that song in 5 minutes. I don't know where it came from. you know
Absolutely.
if you're a baker and all of a sudden you've got this thing coming out of you that's like, oh, I think I need more chocolate chips, or I think I need marshmallows, or whatever it is, And for people to become more aware that when the answers or the direction come through us, kind of pay attention that you're allowing this knowledge and these gifts to come through us. That I feel like we all have the ability. We all have these gifts. It's just simply recognizing what and how they're coming to us and through us.
Absolutely. It can be things like inventions. It can be things like working with children or connecting deeply with people. I mean, just all kinds of things where our natural gifts or our natural passions are enhanced with different inspiration coming through us.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
So, okay, now you just opened another door. Now I'm thinking some more. Okay, so when you're talking about that, what jumped into my mind is that I've had so many readings with people that they're asking me what their purpose is, and I find that you're very technology inclined, and that you have been connected to galactic beings that were of the technology nature, and you've brought these gifts into this lifetime. So if it's a thing like that, like people, a lot of times that people are computer oriented or technology based, mechanical type ways of thinking, a lot of times I'm finding that they're bringing these gifts in from past lives, or different dimensions. And so how do you feel like that is that a gift that's being given, or what's the difference in bringing the knowledge with us through different lifetimes?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that would be part of it because you're expanding your consciousness, even though some of it might come through in unconscious ways, like, oh, I thought I just thought that up, or I had a dream, and now it makes sense to me. So part of that multidimensional nature would be tapping into other time streams. And it might be lives that were connected to Earth. It might be other cosmic species. It might be, other places. So where it's originating from, whether it's a past life or some a group of cosmic beings that they're connected to or resonant with, because they have that capability to facilitate some sort of technological advancement that group is ready to help assist us with through that person.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that resonance can come from a lot of different places.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so now that we've kind of have an idea of how to recognize these gifts, how can we access them or learn to use them, amplify them?
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it might depend on what the actual gifts are, but with almost everything, some consistency and practice and learning is needed. Even me with light language, that went through an evolution that still continues to this day. So we have to kind of remember that beginner's experience and really embrace that and utilize the consistency and the linearity that we're immersed within to practice and learn and test things out and let that passion grow, because the path will be shown through that. But practice is key.
Mm-hmm.
Experiencing is key.
Yeah. So, okay. So whenever we're going through these practices and, having these experiences, um, I'm trying to figure out how to put this in words. When I'm thinking about how to connect with these energies that are coming to me, that are providing messages, I recognize that I have to get out of my head. So, are there practices that you can recommend that can lighten the body, help open up these channels so that we can become more sensitive to them, become more aware to them, and then at that point, when we recognize that what we have to let go of in the physical body to be more in tune with what we're being given, can you recommend some processes or some techniques to do that?
Absolutely. So, of course, meditation is a great one because you're quieting the mind and you're softening your focus so that then your field opens and you're available to information flow. And that's a good practice anyway, because it teaches us how to discipline our minds so that we're not just pushed and pulled and distracted and keeping an energy field that's more information that's not coming from our wellspring. It's a lot of external information. So, meditation will always be a necessary practice for that discipline and that openness. And then there are some things that might help focus in some other ways because I like to say you need to have a lot of go tos, like, oh, I cannot meditate right now. I need to go to something else. And so sometimes you need some of that kinesthetic movement. And that might be a walk in nature. It might be something like dancing or movement that's moving your body. Sometimes, if you can't focus, you need to go through some release cycles. So you might need some to release some emotion, some tears, or some anger. Put on some music that will help that energy flow, and then that will soothe you into a place where you can focus. And then writing is another good one because it's quiet mind and yet you're physically involved. And so it's a way to help focus the mind without that when that discipline of meditation isn't working. So that's another great one, is to journal, stream of consciousness, automatic write,
Mhm.
ask a question on the paper and then just start writing, and don't worry about the answer. So some of those can help get you into a connective state, and you need some different ones because they don't always work every single time the same way.
Yeah. Yeah. I have people all the time that are like, I can't meditate. And I'm not a good meditator. so, so sometimes we need other techniques besides the stereotypical way of
Yes.
meditating. Yeah.
Yes.
Um, Go ahead.
And that's why I love walking, because, if you've got nothing in your ears, you're just listening, or maybe you do have crystal bowls because everything's noisy around you, then you get into that meditative state while learning that your your brainwave state can shift even while you're conscious. And that's part of that multidimensionality that we've been talking about. And I've talked about this for a long time, from time to time in my newsletters, especially as I was noticing us come into these waves of opening as light workers, where we'll have a more active theta brainwave state. We'll have a more active or consistent alpha, and then the active theta, where that becomes more of your waking state, that you've got that subconscious awareness more activated. And so that's a big part of it, is just our brainwave state.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that information. That's good stuff. So, what are some common blockages or beliefs that prevent us from accessing this information?
We're not good enough. That's a big one. Oh, it's just for those people, or sometimes it's that kind of belief. And then other times it's things like you just referenced earlier, Lisa, that, like, oh, when your hands were moving, you weren't correlating it with, I'm doing light language right now. You were like, oh, my Candy Crush addiction. And and yet it was something else, and so we don't always have the context for it. That happened with me with my psychic senses in the early days. I didn't know what was going on, and I had to go through it for a while until I could finally have the perspective of, like, "Oh, that's unusual," and then start piecing it together to even know where to look for more information if I needed that. So the whole experience is about our contextualization of it and our expectations of it. And that's the benefit of being able to see different people doing things, is we get some of that recognition of some of the things that might be happening for us.
Yes. Okay. So here's the big question. I've learned through all of the years. And I've been doing this work for 30 years, and I've learned that this is a continual process. And I know you understand what I'm saying. It's like we started I'm going to call it my, I think that you and I kind of came into this the way that, I didn't realize that I had anything special. I had some weird experiences, but I didn't know, oh, everybody doesn't have the same experience. I sure didn't talk about it because, family never talked about it. Nobody around me ever talked about ghosts or spirits or channeling or any of that stuff. So I didn't even think anything about it. Even though I had some experiences, I was just kind of like, oh, that's interesting. Okay, let's go on to day two. But when I started massage therapy school, that's when I started recognizing that there's something out there. I got quiet, and then the messages started coming through me. Well, that was in 1996. And through all of this process, I have gone through different stages, different understandings, and I learned how to open the Akashic records in 2003. So there was that space between 96 and 2003 where I was just finding myself and going, holy cow, I can see until tomorrow, or whatever it is, all of this stuff that happens. And then I had to learn and get used to the Akashic records, be able to learn how to understand what their messages meant, how my mind was interpreting things that was not necessarily correct, but I was interpreting the messages at the time the way that my mind perceived. So I had to go through this other learning process. So again, and then here I am today with all kinds of different shifts and changes to this point today. So how can you give any things that are pretty common for people to determine? Because a lot of times people feel stuck. And I'm sure that you've had this. I feel stuck. I feel like there's nothing happening. Do you have some points or some ways that people can recognize that even if you feel stuck or you don't understand that you're shifting and changing, these are some telltale signs?
Yeah, good one. Good one. And I would say there's even different phases of that based on where you're at in your journey. Because if someone is at a really beginning point in their journey, then they're going to really need to learn to recognize the signals. So they might have some learning time of, what are my psychic senses like? What kinds of things, how do I notice them? And then of course that meditation and that discipline and the different ways of meditating, walking, writing, things like that, those will be key, because a big important part of this is having that quiet time where you're letting your energy field relax, instead of, oh, I have to do something, oh, what about this thing on my list later. We need that softer energy field that's open and allowing. And sometimes we get that just from our meditation, which is an important part of it. We need to know we have that access by ourselves. And then other times we may get that from resonance with others. And that can happen whether you're in vicinity with them or you're just connecting with them online and it's just something that you're watching, or you're connecting with people in a class or a meetup or whatever. That resonance with others of like mind, it's a communication between energy fields. And it's like experiencing knowledge, just like we do verbally with people when we're talking to them. You learn about their life, you're interacting. Well, our fields are doing that all the time. And they're doing that in a quantum way, not just bound by time and space. So knowing that you have this by yourself, it's important. And you need to exercise that muscle with meditation in different forms. And then knowing that there are others of like mind and having those interactions, it's another upgrade that is part of what we're meant to do here in the physical realm. And then there's another aspect that I find very important for light workers is be willing to continue that observational path, because you're in the realm of change. You will always progress while you're in the realm of change. So I'm done with that. I've transcended that. I've already moved through that. Maybe, maybe not. But no matter what, change is always going to come. It's going to be big sometimes. It's going to be small a lot of the time. But be in that continual observational state so that you're looking for any patterns of upgrade or any patterns most especially, sometimes light workers need to hear this one too, patterns of release. Oh, I'm noticing this challenge. Oh, I'm noticing this thought pattern that I don't like. Well, I'm not going to ignore it. I'm not just going to positive think it away, which that's something we should be doing, continually thinking positively, but not at the expense of ignoring the patterns that life is trying to show you. So be willing to go into those release cycles. What do I need to focus on because I'm noticing this pattern come up? And then sit with that in meditation, sit with that in energy healing, and let that energy release, because release and activation are always simultaneous. They're two sides of one coin. You do one, the other happens. And sometimes we need to approach it through that activation door. This is what I want to level or move into. Sometimes we need to approach it through that release door. This is the challenge I'm having, and this isn't the realm of perfection. So embrace that challenge because it's also an activation.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's important for all of us to understand that this is a continual process. And, even though, I hear the term awakened. I've awakened. Well, you just kind of got a glimpse, actually. So,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think that, I think that there's a door opens that shows you a different way of being or what all the possibilities are. But we constantly are changing and shifting, and new things are coming to us, and especially at this time and what we're going through right now. So I feel like it's important for everybody to recognize that, you are constantly shifting and changing, whether you recognize it or not, whether you feel like you're sitting still and there's nothing that's going on around you or within you. It's always shifting and changing, and we're elevating, and I think that it's important for people to recognize that if I choose to elevate my consciousness, clear out my system, become more at peace and in harmony with all things, it's going to happen whether we recognize it or not, because the universe is working with us to create that change.
Yep.
So now that we have kind of recognized that we have these gifts, how do we start using them in our everyday life?
So I would say the first way is that observation, and when you're observing the things that are coming up in your life, this is something that I like. I want to amplify this. This is something that I don't like. I want to work on shifting this. That observation, or our awareness, is what Ariane calls the first pillar of ascension. And that awareness, it's not just, oh, I like, I don't like. It's not just that. You've started a path of change. And then life is going to be responding to that. Now, it doesn't all happen at once in this linearity, but staying on that observational path is very important for starting to utilize those gifts, and then explore more deeply into some of the things that interest you. If it's energy healing, or you're going to journal about it, any of those steps that are putting you into a state of recognition and awareness of the path that you want to start creating, that's where our focus is really important. One thing that Ariane says constantly is, you never just hear or see something, you interact with it. It becomes part of your information field. And so our work, especially as light workers, that's the work in light work, is what are we going to do with that information? Is it just, oh, this is how it is, or now I'm reactive and I've contracted my field because I don't like that? What are you going to do with it? Can you let it be okay that you reacted and this is how your field work feels now? Well, maybe you need to cry it out. Maybe you need to laugh it out. Maybe you need to think of some different perspectives. Maybe you need to journal for a bit. That's the path of change. And we utilize our skills like energy healing and reading the Akashic records and channeling. We utilize that to help support that change state that we're constantly in. But that observational point, or that awareness, is where it all starts.
And so we've covered a lot of information here in a very short time frame. Is there anything that you feel passionate about that you want to share about? Because I have some more questions coming to you, but on a different subject. But for this particular subject, is there anything that you would like to share that we haven't discussed?
Yeah, I think we touched on this, but this is very natural to us. We are all special and we're all not so special. You know what I mean? That point of softened ego that's not polarizing one way or the other, that's very malleable and knows that there's no one else like you in all of time and space. That's how special and unique you are. And yet, everyone here is also that. And so that keeps us in this balanced point of multidimensional gifts are natural to us. We all deserve them because we're born into this biomechanism of human being. We don't just earn them from being good or not, we are them. And so this is absolutely natural to us. And it's for everyone, even though everyone is going to do it differently. Some of us do it in more obviously spiritual and kind of out there ways. And then others of us do it in everyday life when we're communicating with people or interacting with people at the grocery store. It's constant and it's natural to us because it's who we are.
Yeah, and and I think that what I'm finding is that for me, as we're shifting into this different new way of being, and again, I use the description we're in the hallway. So the fourth dimension basically is the hallway. Okay, so one door leads us back to the 3D, and the other door on the other side leads us to the fifth dimension. And we're stuck in the hallway going, which way do I go? Which way do I go? 3D, I'm used to. I know what it is. I've already got it figured out, and it's easy to slide back into that way of being. But the 5D, boy, when I slide over in here, oh man, it feels good. And boy, life is so easy and everything is fabulous. And then something rips me back into the hallway. And so when we're trying to maneuver through these energies and focus on these beautiful gifts and get them more ingrained in our behavior, what are you finding that what can we do and how can people get accustomed or train our system to move towards that fifth dimension and be able to stay there instead of going, I call it the push me pull me, the Dr. Doolittle llama, the two-headed llama. We're fighting going back and forth, and somebody's going to win, and hopefully it's the 5D llama. so so how do you and what do you recommend for people that are going back and forth like that?
Oh, this will sound repetitive, but it's meditation, it's
Mhm.
observation. And what that meditation does, and again, use a lot of different ways. It's not all just sitting quietly trying to have no thoughts. You walk out in nature, you listen more when you connect rather than letting things just kind of spin. You're getting into a more of a still point or more of a neutrality, and it's that neutrality that lets that bandwidth expand with more stability. Otherwise, if you're just, "Oh, I'm positive thinking," then you're polarizing one way, and that illusion can easily break. So it's the practice of neutrality that really sustains that. And then as you're going about your day-to-day life where sometimes it's busy movement, like, "Oh, I'm at the grocery store, I'm thinking about all the things." Can you have those moments of just taking a breath and observing the things that are around you? Because we're constantly working to expand awareness. That's always step one. That's that first pillar, and it creates all of the other results of that. which is your awareness then starts a process of change. And so you move into initiation, where you're going through a lot of inner changes, and you're starting to perceive things differently. And the next step is a release cycle, that you're releasing the things that are no longer resonant with your expanded vibration. And then expansion is that fourth pillar. It's the result of that whole process. And they're not always one happens and then the other and then the other. They're not linear like that, but that's our linear understanding of them. So it's always going to be that awareness, and sometimes that self-awareness, like you're talking to someone and you're noticing that you're getting agitated, or you're not even listening, you're thinking of response. Can you slow down and listen, and therefore expand your vibration, more of an open, neutral state? So that's going to be key to being able to navigate that hallway and the back and forth without it feeling like, oh my God, I'm trapped back in 3D. This is so natural to us, but it just takes that mental and emotional effort at first to create that discipline of open observational state and more neutrality, even through the ups and downs of emotions or pace. Sometimes we're walking slowly, sometimes we're walking really fast, but we can still have that expanded awareness through it.
Yeah, and I think that this is also important. For, again, the reason why we go through this process. Over the past 20 years, we do a little bit at a time so that we can adjust, and that's why we don't just all of a sudden wake up and our whole world's changed. And I think that that's important for people to understand as well, because I think people have the idea that that's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to just wake up one day and everything is shifted. And I keep telling people, it's like, we can't handle that.
Mhm.
It has to
Yeah.
be the gradual becoming adjusted to these shifts and changes.
Yeah,
So
that way
one,
you understand it, you're implementing it, you're applying it, you're learning about it. That's the beauty of that, and it's experience that creates wisdom, not
yeah,
knowledge.
absolutely, absolutely. We've got to live it to know it. So once we have become more adjusted to all of our multidimensional gifts, and we're more walking through that fifth dimensional door, what do you see for the days to come? What do you see for us as humans walking through that door? What can we expect?
More and more connection, more and more empowerment, that our love is leading things rather than the fear and manipulation that leads in the third dimension, when that's the dominant prevalence. Because that's all about the experience of separation. And in the physical, we've learned through our recent history of thousands of years that it's the strongest and those that can manipulate or control that have the power. And yet, this physicality is less than 1% of us. We are 99.9 plus percent connected. And we're moving into more of that experience. And therefore, it's just going to keep expanding in more connective ways, where we get to see beyond just the external, or we get to see beyond the words that are said, or the things that are that seem like they are just an entire tide of movement that's controlling us. That once we're more connected, it continues to create more critical mass of the mechanisms of separation can no longer lead, and that's where we're going.
Yeah. So when we started, before we started recording this, you've mentioned an activation. Are you willing to do that still?
Absolutely, absolutely. And of course, let's do an activation for our multidimensional gifts. And so, those of you that have already opened up some, Maybe it's to expand that. Maybe it's for something new to come online. Maybe for those of you that haven't recognized that some of those have already opened, that it's the recognition or brand new ones coming online. So whatever's perfect for you will be what your higher self does with the light language frequencies and the crystalline soul healing frequencies. And so you will release and activate in a way that's perfect for you.
Okay. All right. You ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So everyone take a nice relaxing breath. You can open your eyes or close your eyes, whatever feels comfortable, more so for your own focus. And then as I'm doing the transmission, just see what you notice, any kind of physical sensations, thoughts or emotions, or psychic impressions that come up. Just be aware. Amniarut huarat aklail hermat mdesu. Brashtanu hamderuk imtiaruk ukwam bralhretiet nemahat im. Korek andheim ashdairahut makt indet el urnum hatiaromat nam. Ram hakaimat ot sachairuhrum. Ambreret kral hanandat im, som starkmat hanant am sokorat, grel herkum breret an num stairumat nam, kal rukua nam. Brar hatmat sum charuk rakwel ranem, bran himat al uranasut okwa, gred anshuk urm. Karum ansurach urutma brol hertim. Menem hakrayat usuch taruk akrayel hertim, mnon rekat bral renstadt im sukrurum, waram akrayamat nin such urem, brel hertum akrad and atat such tauka. Karusakaya tua. Brat haniat kam. Sokaru tam. Tonond okurat umtan at damstaya kror tantiem am bro harantau ura sut utsam en chorob tamut ankrantiet mo bram hapkto akorat antotem tau et not suk und grona tier mat und grel erkon am da bra dukt eno at en urmesto okoram krond ham terot wa ndit gran arktan tiet sum charokoramta wara antierot okorat am bra arokorat an harat am at such kranda tienat o kro hrt am such okrorat am embrad rut o kro oram orat and rot am orat am arat ot red o and our takurat anni. Babas anshukwa. Nice. You can take another relaxing breath. You can gently rub your hands together, rub your hands on your legs, move your body if you like. Bring yourself into a more active brain state. Nice. Interesting. Interesting. Did you get anything, Lisa? Any experiences?
Oh, my head. I'm a little lightheaded right now. It's funny because I just happened to open my eyes and see you doing this. Like, yep, she's unplugging, unplugging, and I get that a lot too. It's almost like these old programs were plugged in, and we're getting rewired, and they're unplugging the old and reconnecting. Yeah, I could definitely feel that. I don't know about anybody, what anybody else is experiencing, but that's what I experienced. So again,
Nice.
my head's a little loopy.
Mhm. Yeah, I was
So,
definitely noticing that movement all through the head, a lot of third eye activation, a lot of heart expansion,
mhm,
a lot of throat expansion, and then towards the very end, there was some release from the throat, and I was hearing this galactic being that felt Syrian to me that was talking about how that was all about letting go of. Let me get it back. Ah, letting go of how we hold our expression back,
yeah,
that it's not just the verbal expression or the things that we say that, oh, now we need to say everything. Sure, there's times where speaking is the wisdom choice, and yet there's times where not speaking is the wisdom choice, but that's very different than suppressing your energy versus letting that energy flow even in silence.
mhm,
And so that was a really powerful one. I don't know what was going on right before that. That was intense. Well, I know part of what was going on, but that fast movement. There was something that was going on all around the torso that was about freeing up more space so that it has more harmony. I was being shown like a harp kind of thing, like playing that's what they're creating, that there's this greater space for resonance to occur, and then that harmony will naturally flow rather than having to effort so much for that. So that was really interesting, really intense. And then right at the very end, I was seeing all white, and they were saying, "This is who you are. This is who you are." And so it was beautiful.
yeah. We are the light. We are the
Mhm.
light. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting when you're talking about the torso and how you could feel that expanding. And what I've recognized is that the more that we clear, all of these old belief systems, all the old traumas, all of the old things that we're holding on to, it fills our body and it makes us thick. It's like layer and layers and layers and layers and layers of this stuff. And
Mhm.
so when you're expressing it that way, what I see is that when we get this removed, the expansiveness of who we are is going to all shift and change into this beautiful light energy. And which they're laughing, and I'm hearing in my ear light being, where we
Yeah.
are. That's what's creating the light beings
Yeah.
and what we're moving
Yeah.
to.
That's why I named my modality back in 2005 crystalline soul healing. My guides gave me that, but they were showing me that this is why you do the energy healing, is to create that spaciousness, that openness, and that clarity of flow in the energy field. Otherwise, it's like little distortions and densifications, and then information can't flow easily. The
Yeah.
lightening up, that's the
Yeah.
whole game.
Yep. And that's what we're moving to, is these light bodies. That's what I feel like that's what's happening. Is that
Mhm.
what you think is happening? Yeah.
Absolutely, there's a Star Trek about it, because there's a Star Trek about everything. But we're shifting density is essentially what's going on now, and this is why we all came here at this time, and even why there's so much chaos as the old is breaking down and exposing itself, that this is the time that we are moving from third density into fourth density, which is back and forth. And it's a long process, it's an evolutionary process, but that will still be a physical body, and yet much more connectedness, much more awareness.
Mhm.
So, a vastly expanded bandwidth of conscious multidimensional awareness. And
Yeah.
that's the whole journey that we're going through now. And it's that lightening up of the density that will still be in physicality, but we won't have the same kind of, tightened bandwidth. And yet, over time, it would eventually evolve into a non-physical body.
Mhm.
And, that's a very long evolution as
Yeah.
far as the human track goes. But
Mhm.
yeah, our light body is what we are and have always been and will be. But it's the access point from this dimensional expression, from
Mhm.
this density expression.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've had this beautiful experience of, that basically my ego left. And I had the experience. I mean, I felt the energy of literally the ego stepping aside. And of course, the first response I had was, "Oh my God, what am I going to do without my personality?" Which is interesting that that was my first thought. But in the moment of all this, I felt my body. I can't even explain that there was a feeling of hollowness, but lightness. And then as soon as that ego came back, I felt weighted down again. I felt thick and dense. And where I feel like we're moving to is that experience that I have of feeling like my body was hollow, but not hollow, but a very, very light, airy feeling. And to me, that's what we're moving to, and what this light is going to be expanding into us, because there's no more blockages. There's no more barriers to keep us thick and
Mhm.
dense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which would be the next level of lighter ego, the next level of
Yeah.
lighter ego, where that beautiful little ego keeps us alive here in this physical density.
Mhm.
But it's also part of recognizing separation. And it's valuable to navigate this realm, but it needs to evolve also with more and more connection. Oh, I'm connected to all of these people. Oh, I see what hatred does. Oh, I see how judgment does this and that, where it keeps expanding into a more collective, connected, egoic structure.
Yeah.
And that's lighter, less
Yeah.
dense.
Yeah. 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 So, Jamie, gosh, what a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. I do want to jump back to the channel panel. So, what is your workshop going to be, and what day is it on?
Ooh, I don't remember the day. And I do know that for the channel panel, the main stage, everybody on the main stage, our main presentations, that's all live streamed, but all of our classes are only in person. So you have to come to the actual event to see any of our amazing classes, and you will want to. Um, and everything else is available via live stream. So definitely connect in with that energy any way that you can. This this Sedona event, the channel panel in Sedona, that was like January 3rd or something of this year, it was amazing, the energy. And so I know this is going to be the same, where my class is, oh, it's a tongue twister. It is cosmic integration and earthly elevation. So essentially, as we integrate our cosmic nature, that elevates the human experience. And this is what we've been talking about all day today, is more of that cosmic integration, more of that cosmic awareness that becomes the bandwidth of the human experience.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited about that, because
Yes.
when Ariane brought that through, they were showing me how all of these times leading up to that are part of what they're planning to do there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's going to be an exciting time, and the energy is just fabulous there, and it's just going to be an amazing experience for everybody. So you also have some beautiful things that you offer. You offer classes. You offer healing sessions as well, right?
I don't do private
Is that
sessions
more?
anymore.
Okay.
I teach people to do light language. I teach people to do crystalline soul healing. And so my crystalline soul healing practitioners are where I link to from my website, where people come for sessions. So those classes are all online now. And so you can join from anywhere. And those start again in September. So
Okay.
September 6th for light language, and then September 19th for crystalline soul healing. So those are available there on my website.
Okay. So how do people find your website?
It's my name, which is spelled weird. It was the 70s. So it's jamieprice.com, and Jamie is JAMYE price.com.
Well, Jamie, again, thank you for being here. And for all of you guys that watched this, thank you for spending your time with us. And I will see you guys next time.
Thank you, Lisa.